bisschen Nageln.
Back. This is Kill the Cat Radio. Back for the fascination. Because what killed the cat? Well, you already know that. Now say it out loud with me. Curiosity. But remember, satisfaction brought it back. I'm Matthew Diabate, your one and only host. It's been a minute, but I'm happy to be back. And I'm happy y'all are back. Rough couple of years, huh? Let's not dwell on the past. You know what they say. It ain't where you're from. It's where you're going. I got a special treat for you today. I'm interviewing one of the best artists I know living here in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. There's only 5 painters left. And I'm on the quest to get them all on wax. Today, we've got an interview with Mark Albright, a humble gentleman who has chased down the artistic muse most of his life. During the interview, we talk about process, his upbringing, how New York City changed the game, and all the perils and positivity that come along with what it really takes to be an artist of any stripe in this city. And yes, I fanboy at the end. Don't judge me. What if you had the chance to hang out with one of your favorite local living artists? You might get a little funny too. Either way, we started chatting about his journey, how he got here, and what it took to stay. So without further ado, here we go. And, okay, cool. So, all right, so New Paltz was, before New Paltz, what was that town?
It was Ravenna, New York, and I went to school RCS, and I was telling you about my friend David Laporte, and he was drawing, and he really inspired me to start drawing in the margins of my notes. I barely took notes.
Yeah. What kind of guy was he?
He was into Fangoria magazine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he kind of introduced me to that. I was scared to watch horror films back then because they scared me.
Yeah.
But I like to look at the gore.
Right.
Fangoria.
Oh, so the blood.
Yeah, that was.
It started with the blood.
Yeah, well.
Right.
Well, I think it started with the trips to New York and all the porn.
Right. You just immediately were like, holy shit, my mind is getting blown. So you're in this small town. And then, we're going to go to Times Square. What would you do to see a play or something? Or?
Yeah, we'd come down, we'd stay in a hotel and see a play. I saw Grease when I was a kid.
Wow. You know. So then did your parents try to prevent you from seeing all the sexuality? I mean...
They really did. They would kind of, divert my eyes.
Were you, would you consider yourself a repressed kid at that point? Was it kind of some repression going on?
Yeah, definitely.
So then what were these doodles like? Did you have a theme, or was it primarily cartoon characters?
Yeah, I did mostly cartoon characters and Star Wars characters and
right.
Girls.
Yeah, right. So you actually started drawing girls, because now if you look at all your stuff now, I mean, it's just laden with sexuality. I mean, I've got it all right up here.
It is.
Yeah, and it's awesome, and rock and roll, and early. Because, this stuff just right off the bat, when you just look at your work, the first thing I think is street art. I don't know why my mind goes there. I don't know if that's an intention of yours.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is this inspired from a lot of the street art you saw?
Yeah, definitely. I mean...
Who were some of the guys that you remember, coming up, when you first got here?
Well, I don't know any of those guys, but Foul Art is definitely, they were the biggest.
Well, who are these people? Can you explain? Yeah.
I don't know them,
yeah.
But they have a studio up here on the north side, and it's a pretty big studio. And they're pretty big. They do stencils, and I definitely was influenced by them a lot.
So what kind of work they do?
I mean, so Shepard Fairley was big when I was.
Oh, he was there. Oh, so he was working here.
Well, he had work. The Obey Giant thing was huge, and Revs, and
right,
Neckface, and all these other weird things are going on. I have no idea any of these people are.
Right.
That's who I was seeing. That's who I was into.
So when you went to art school in New Paltz, and that's where did you have would you consider a classical education in art?
I didn't say that. No. Not at all.
Yeah.
I think that we had a good education, but
like a well-rounded.
But no one ever taught you how to draw or paint. No one said, okay, draw this. They would say, they'd set up a still life and they'd say, draw this, but they didn't really give you any idea of how to do that.
Don't you have to get accepted by your skills, right? So you already had the skills previous to school, right?
Well, I definitely think I did. I had an innate ability, but I wasn't a drawing kind of guy. I eventually, after doodling, I became a painter.
Oh, okay. So now it's just color.
I was an abstract painter when I went to school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was a kind of, Dave Laporte was, and then I liked hanging out with him in art class, and then I liked the people in art class because they were all a little weirdo.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, felt more at home there. But I wasn't the art guy. I was like just kind of a hanger-oner. Like
at
I
the
wasn't.
Beginning.
I wasn't David Laporte.
Right.
I wasn't the other people that were actually quite good at drawing cars and drawing landscapes.
Right.
And David Laporte was great at drawing superheroes. So that was like I like that, or like cartoon characters.
Yeah.
Right? He was so good at that.
Were you in the comic book game when you were younger?
Not really, no. But I eventually became into the comic book game because pot.
Weed got you right into it. Right.
Yeah, weed got me into it because when I was in New Paltz, my pot dealer was dealing outside of a comic book shop.
Oh, well, that's perfect.
And so I swear the Simpsons stole comic book guy from this guy.
Oh, is that the guy from the? Oh, yeah.
The Simpsons comic book guy reminded me of my pot dealer in New Paltz. And so when you'd go in, he would just put your pot, and he'd have he would have your list. So I'd get like Hulk and Spider-Man, and I'd get other things, other Dark Horse comics and Spawn.
Dark Horse was awesome. I remember that.
Yeah, and so I had my 10 comic books that I read during college because I had to buy them in order to get my eighth of weed.
Oh, that's funny. I love how it's connected. I like how weed and art just became, fused in together.
So I read a lot of comics in college, but I was in school or high school or middle school. I really didn't read any comic books.
Okay, but was there any space between high school and art school? Did you have that kind of freedom space, or did you jump right into?
Well, I guess
the university.
Well, so anyway, I went to junior college before I went to New Paltz.
Oh, okay.
Because I was I was a bad student.
Oh, you were a bad kid.
I was a bad student.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I was a difficult kid, but I wasn't a bad kid. I had learning disabilities, so I acted out, right?
Yeah, of course.
And they didn't know that back then.
Yeah.
Back when I went to school, they didn't know what dyslexia was. Attention deficit disorder.
And that stuff was not really. They didn't show any mercy, and they didn't really talk about it.
I spent a lot of time in detention.
And then they probably were thinking, and then you look back at that, it's like, oh my God, can you believe how far we've come?
To be honest with you, I don't remember. Well, I have one good story about a teacher in high school.
Tell the story.
And the story is that when I was it was the junior year in high school, we did have this teacher. Now we'll bring her name up because it's a good. And her name was Kathy Wolf, and she saw me, and she's it's like you're always acting up in class, but you're a really good drawer.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was really into Pink Floyd and Gerald Scarfe.
Wow.
And so, I was doing all these, kind of Gerald Scarfe drawing. She's like, "Did you ever hear of this guy, Salvador Dali?" And I'm like, it's like every art student's first introduction to art is Salvador Dali.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, no, I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
Of course not. And so I looked it up. I'm like, oh, this is really cool shit. And then it just rolled downhill. And so by my senior year in high school, I was the elite in the class now. I was
in the art school or just in the...
No, this is in high school.
In high school, but in the art section.
In the art department.
In the art department, they were like, this guy.
This
guy's the shit. Right.
I'm in advanced placement art.
Okay.
And, this is very good for me. I didn't have much of an ego at that time, and this was good.
Yeah, it gave you a sense of self, you know what I mean? Feeling like the outsider, and then now suddenly you're like, holy shit, I'm doing...
So the fact that she introduced me to Salvador Dali, and she said, oh, well, I'm going to be teaching the class about surrealism. Maybe you should do some research on that.
Ooh.
And so I went to the library and, took out encyclopedias and looked up this.
All right, okay. Oh, shit. This is where it begins.
It's just, that was, I enjoyed doing that. I also liked going to the library and reading things about artists and stuff like that.
So you learned about, obviously, then when you start learning about how weird Dali was, that guy, just his lifestyle.
Francis Bacon immediately.
No, that guy. Oh, God, Francis Bacon.
We'll also talk about, Pink Floyd and Gerald Scarfe and screaming and melting faces and craziness. Francis Bacon became really.
Oh my
up there
God, bacon
fast.
is crazy. You know, I don't know. Have you been to the MoMA? They got a couple of bacons over
Yeah,
there.
I've been to Momo a bunch of
Yeah.
times.
No. I'm saying now, even now when they did the
Oh, yeah.
they redid it.
I haven't been there since COVID.
Oh, okay. Because like right before COVID, they redid everything. They had a $50 million extension or whatever. It's for the rich people above it, but they also added like another full floors. I think tons of new square feet, and so now they're able to put out all their stuff. It's great. I'm a member, so you got to go over there.
I have to go.
Because I'm a member, you can borrow one of my cards. Like, just go for free. Bring your lady.
Sounds great, dude.
Yeah, right.
That sounds all right.
But that's interesting how you come into it through a teacher. So there's always.
I wanted, she was really influential because by the time the teacher that was pregnant came back, then she's like, "Oh my God, when did you become such a great painter?"
Oh.
Because what I was doing is that because I lived near Albany. They have a massive abstract expressionist collection.
Really?
Yeah. So
what's the museum over there?
Well, it's not a museum. It's an Empire State Plaza, and it's a Rockefeller. Nelson Rockefeller, when he was governor, he put in this plaza in Albany, and it has this gigantic concourse that's probably a quarter mile long.
Yeah.
And it's just filled with abstract expression, second generation abstract.
Hell yeah.
And we would go there like every year in art school. It was
they would take
trip.
you there.
Yeah.
They take you there.
And we'd look at these paintings, and I'd be like, I really didn't understand them. I didn't know what existentialism was, or
craziness.
I just looked at them and I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like I was saying that anybody could do that.
Right.
I said I have the means to do that.
The means in what way?
So my dad was an auto body mechanic, and he ran an under the table garage.
Nice.
And so he had all this paint. I mean, buckets and buckets and pints and quarts and gallons of paint, car paint, all left over.
Just sit in a room.
Just sitting there. And so I started taking fenders and quarter panels would come in giant boxes. So I would take these giant boxes and I would start doing these paintings on them. And, I would take them to school in my dad's F-350, truck these gigantic paintings.
Nice.
And they're just like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
And I definitely had this instinct to make a composition, an abstract composition. They were pretty deep paintings.
Yeah, and a lot of people, this is one of the things that pissed me off, especially about some people who are not really familiar with the history of art or what have you, or why these things exist, or what you can do with them, like the power of it when they look at Pollock.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was some article, maybe you probably know this because you probably learned it in art school, but apparently they traced the patterns of Pollock's movement actually is quite mathematical.
Yeah.
And there was almost like he did have
it's
real,
fractal.
Right.
It's fractal.
Thank you. Yeah. So a friend of mine started explaining this to me. I'm like, I knew it. I felt it.
Yeah.
People say that you can do this, or like Rothko, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And you say okay, can you do a Rothko? You look at a Rothko and you're going,
no,
this is moody as fuck.
I was making Albrights, right? I wasn't making Pollocks.
Right.
I wasn't making Rothkos.
Yeah.
I was making Mark Albrights at that time.
Yeah. Do you still have these works?
I have some pieces up at my parents' house that are,
okay.
But most of it's lost.
Yeah. Okay. Lost to the.
I do have slides.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Hey, that's at least something exists.
Yeah, I have slides of it.
Did you ever get into object art at that time?
I was really into also Rauschenberg and I would steal barbed wire and put barbed wire on my paintings and any sign I could find I would collage them on, and they were I would put them on paneling.
And and so because you had the auto body shop, right? So your pops was a mechanic, right?
And a hoarder, so
that's perfect.
Yeah, and a hoarder.
That's perfect. What did your mom do?
Well, my mom was in the restaurant industry for most of my life, and then when I got older, she went into being a bank teller.
Nice. Okay, so she went into that's a lot more, stable than the restaurant, right?
Well, I think she loved the restaurant business. It's just that, it's hard on your body.
Well, it is. You can't be doing it. I mean, the knees on a bartender will,
It's hard
and then
on
the
the
shin
back.
splints that you get eventually. That you're like, oh, where'd that come from?
Well, being a bank teller wasn't much better. You're standing all
Yeah,
day.
right.
But anyway, yeah, my dad was a body man and my mom was a bank teller.
Body man. I've never heard that before. I'm using that in one of my short stories. But what is so? Did they encourage your art? Did they,
Not at all.
So they were just like, what is this kid doing?
They did not want me to be an artist. They
Why
were-
why would you think their resistance is? What do you think? Like the usual reasons, or
Yeah, how was I going to survive?
they're like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, they were never supportive. I love them, but they're never supportive.
So when you started having these shows, like I'm sure you had your own shows at school.
I did.
Did they come to these shows?
Yeah, they came.
Okay,
but
that's cool. All right.
they were skeptical.
Yeah, they're like, what are you gonna do with this? What are you gonna do with this degree? What's gonna happen here?
Yeah, they were very skeptical. They didn't understand art. They still don't. My dad's passed, but
Yeah.
they don't really know what I do.
Right. It was kind of like, so when they heard you were going to move to New York, was your reason to be? Why did you? When you moved here, you were like, okay, I'm gonna.
Well, I guess that when I moved here, I mean, the story is that my wife and I were not married yet, but we were living together in New Paltz, and she got a job here, and she's like, "You coming to New York with me?" And I was like a little like, I don't know, I kind of a big fish in a small pond up here, kind of like it. And it took me about 8 hours, and I said, "All right, I'll come to New York." I said, "But we're moving to Brooklyn. I'm not moving to Manhattan."
Really? So what was the difference for you?
Well, you got more space in Brooklyn.
Right.
Back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get way more space in Brooklyn back then than
Yeah.
Manhattan. All of my musician friends from New Paltz were moving to the Lower East Side, which was perfect for
Yeah.
them because they had a guitar and
Right.
that was good because there wasn't really anything over here yet.
Yeah. Right.
And so when we would go out back then, we'd go to Lower East Side, downtown Beirut, Village
Yeah.
Idiot.
Like, because these are like all the names I've heard before, but I never really
Yeah.
went to. Because Beirut,
Lucy's.
Lucy's is still there.
Yep.
So your folks were just like, okay, what is he doing? He's got his girlfriend. Were they happy about the New York move as well, or they were just like, oh boy, what are we gonna do?
No, they were not happy about that. But I had moved out, so they really
Okay.
weren't.
Right.
I mean, they wished they were, but they
Yeah.
weren't
Yeah.
making decisions for me
For you.
anymore.
All right. So at that point, so you're in New Paltz, you're dating your girlfriend. She's got a job here.
I was living with her. I mean, we were.
Oh, you guys were
we were
cohabitating
We were pretty damn close. Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
We were pretty much soulmates.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, okay, we're moving to Brooklyn. It's got to be that. Did she agree to that?
Yes.
She did.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's like, okay, because it was not safe. I mean,
Yeah, no,
it's okay. It's not safe for us. It was even not safer for the ladies.
She was cool with that. I mean,
Yeah.
she lived in Philly for a little bit too.
Okay, so she had some-
She was definitely wanting to move back to West City.
Yeah.
New Paltz was not cutting it for her.
Yeah.
And she had just finished her degree and wanted to get a real job.
Yeah.
And up there, she's in the garment industry, so
Yeah, you're
there's
not-
no garment
you're not
industry.
doing
in New
anything- no,
Paltz
no,
or
no, that's not
Poughkeepsie or anything like that.
No, that's not
She
happening.
was managing a store in the mall, right? And no.
Yeah, it's like we're going to the hub, and that's also like there's like 3 reasons why people get on this podcast. It's like one of them they have to be, well, they don't have to be, but artists always get the first run, which that's why you're here. But then you were a bartender, which also bartenders get number 1 chances to get on this thing because they're my favorite people. But also people who've been in New York a long time. So there's a lot of regulars that have come on here. So when you got here, what kind of feeling did you have? Because it's such a powerful experience when you first get to New York City.
Well, it is, and I was, so I came down thinking I would get a job in a restaurant right away, because I'd been working at a Friendly's in New Paltz my entire
I'm familiar
college,
with that.
college
Familiar with
life.
that place.
But I didn't have New York experience, and I kind of
Right.
wanted to definitely get out of that corporation restaurant. I wanted to get into a nice little. So I had a real hard time finding a job for the first 2 months.
Really? It was tough. Like there's even in Manhattan it
Well,
was tough. Like
yeah, I wasn't very good at getting a job either. So
like 93. This is
I had no
93.
bartending experience.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And I wasn't looking at bar backing at that time because I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
I could have probably started doing that. I immediately set up a studio in my house.
Yeah.
In my apartment. We had a really cool pad back then. We had a 2-bedroom. I took the second bedroom, much like this. You know.
Railroad.
I took the second bedroom and just turned it into a painting studio, and then I had a big rooftop. And
Hell
I was
yeah.
building shit out there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Where was it? Now, what neighborhood was
This
this?
is in Humboldt, and between Frost and Richards.
So you moved to Greenpoint, Brooklyn
But
in
it wa-
1993.
But it's Williamsburg.
Yeah. But what a culture shock that is, because that's pretty much Polish, right? That
Oh, I was Italian.
Oh, it's the Italians over there.
Yeah. Well, I was like right across the street from Frost restaurant.
Right.
And I'll tell you, back then we'd go to dinner there, and it was like, the Genovese crime family.
I mean, didn't they base
Prominent.
Donnie Brasco in right? Like everything that went down in Donnie Brasco happened in this neighborhood, and I think Goodfellas, right, was more deeper Brooklyn, right? I'm trying to. Get my mafia pictures
I
together.
know certain things about the Donnie Brasco stuff.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it.
But yeah, I think
We stray away from those matters on the Kill the Cat radio.
I do think that's true. That
Did you feel that vibe when you moved here? Not like the mafia vibe. I'm saying, like, did you feel that strange, like, just like you were
not knowing what a pork store was. Yeah, it was a really interesting thing, to move into this neighborhood, and it was cool.
Yeah, because a lot of the neighborhoods, and then you had Greenpoint right next to you, or
right. You went, basically, you crossed the BQE into Greenpoint, and you were transported to like Warsaw.
Now you're in Old Poland, right?
Yeah.
And then if you go south side, then you're transferred. You're in like Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, right?
Right.
And it was very. I mean, it must have been kind of hectic, though. Did you feel that danger that like that a lot of people felt when they first got here?
Well, yeah, I think it taught me how to stay sharp in a city environment. That's for sure.
Keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, I worked nights on my first job, so and I worked on the Intrepid.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
over there on the west side.
I was a night watchman on the Intrepid.
No shit.
That was my first job in New York.
Night watchman.
Yep, from
It's so crazy.
midnight to 8.
So what did you do? You just walk around?
Well, I sat in a booth.
Okay, you were the booth guy.
No, and then I think 3 times a night I would have to walk around and punch things.
Yeah.
And
But meanwhile, when you got off work, you were painting.
I was. I would sleep a little bit, and then I would paint. Yeah, I was definitely painting. Yeah.
So when did it hit you? When was that moment for you? And I've talked to Jesse about it. I talked to Monty about it. What was that moment when you're like, okay, I'm all in on the arts? I'm all in. This is not a game. Like this.
I did that in New Paltz, but then due to circumstances, I lost it for a while there.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, when I cut my fingers off, that was a very life-changing experience. Yeah. And so I definitely, from 2001 to 2008, I lost a lot of time in there. And I was working.
So that's 7-year period.
Yeah.
So how did it happen? So what are we talking about?
Oh, I cut my fingers off with a table saw.
What were you working on?
I was working for an art handling company.
Okay.
And
this is in New Paltz, or this is New York?
This is in New York.
Wow, so you moved to New York, and then as an artist, you lose your fingers.
Yeah, so I lost my fingers in 2001.
And what was the wound, just for the audience, so they don't? I mean, I
cut my index finger off and my half my thumb on my left hand.
So think about that, guys. Okay, think how tough that is. So you just lose like.
Yeah, it sucks. That is a really crazy, horrible experience to see your finger on the table saw.
And they're like, we're not putting it back on. This is not going to happen.
It couldn't happen because that would happen if it was a meat slicer, but with a table saw, there's so much kerf on the blade, it just pulverized.
And so in 2001, so you were already here for a good chunk. You were here for, that's like what, 7 years?
Yeah.
7 years, and then you have this dreadful accident, which is the most horrific thing you could possibly have as a. Yeah. And are you right-handed?
Yeah.
Of course, it's got to be. It's
got
to be.
It's my left hand, so it's good.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm like, maybe I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're just looking at me backwards.
Sorry.
My left hand. This is my right.
It's been a long year.
I am your mirror.
I am your mirror. So that just put you out of the game. Like, was it depression?
Yes.
Meets Like, what did you feel? I mean, most people who have some kind of major
I
health
still
situation.
painted it now and again, and I was kind of entertaining the fact that I was still an artist. But I, hindsight being 2020, I was like, you barely did anything, you lazy bastard.
Wow.
I just want to say, just being in the art, in the art game, I don't mean the art world. I mean making art.
That's what I'm talking
for
about.
a job.
Yeah.
I mean, not as a job,
No.
but as like your passion.
Like your thing, right?
Because I don't make any money.
At that point, you were saying you weren't doing a lot of work that you should have been doing. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I lost some time there.
Yeah.
And it takes time. You get, atrophy sets in, and it takes time to build yourself up.
How did you get yourself out of that rut?
Well, I stopped working construction.
Okay.
So I worked for a guy for about 5 years doing construction, which was really good because I own a house and it was in bad shape and I needed to learn these skills.
Yeah.
But he left town and the company dissolved, and I started working as a handyman, but I didn't work 40 hours a week or
Right.
60 hours a week or whatever. So I had more time. In 2008, I had my first kind of coming back out show at the Brooklyn Ale House here.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I think I was
And it was-
there. I think I was actually there for that.
And it was my first show since '99.
Wow.
So
And and so going back to like you're moving to New York, you're here, it was before the accident, and so it was like life pre-accident and post-accident.
when I was
Right.
working for art handling, when I was doing art handling,
Yeah.
because I was involved with the art and I was holding art and I had some really interesting clients. I mean, the company I worked for did, but I got to work with them.
Yeah.
Frank Stella.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Who else did you work with? That we can name drop.
Oh well.
It's okay. It's cool. It's,
Well, one of the big artists that we had as a client was a local artist here. At least he had a studio here for a long time. It was Leonardo Drew. Are you familiar with his work?
I'm not.
He's this cool cat, man. And at first, I was really suspect of his work because it seemed like he would make these, and he'd get lots of lath from demolition. Like
Okay.
most buildings are built with plaster and lath. So
Okay.
during the whole great renovations of Brooklyn, there'd be tons of this lath.
What is laugh?
Lath is what
I
they
don't know
used to. So back in the day, they never framed because they didn't have sheet goods. They didn't have things that were 4x8. So how they used to do it in the old times is that they would put their studs in, and then they would put little small slats of wood called lath. And then a plaster guy would come in, and he would, with horsehair plaster, which is really thick plaster, would come in and cover that all up. And then a fine plaster would come and finally do the last phase.
Shit.
And that's how they used to build walls.
Huh. So all this lath was laying around, and he
And
just
so
went to
he
it.
was making these like 2-inch by 2-inch boxes out of lath, and he would glue it together, and he would make thousands of these little boxes, and then he would glue these little boxes on 2-foot by 2-foot pieces of plywood.
Yeah.
And then he would stuff them with all this stuffed animals and trash
What?
and stuff that he was getting from dumpster diving.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was making these gigantic, like, I don't know, I'm gonna say at least the size of this wall.
Yeah.
So what's that, 8 foot by 14 feet?
Right? Yeah.
And so then
Wow.
what our company would do was we would take his 2 foot by 2 foot things and we would mount them, and they would become one giant piece of artwork.
Oh, wow.
It was really
Where
cool.
did he show? Where was he showing?
He showed at what's her name, Mary Boone, which is she's
Mary
a big
Boone,
that's
yeah.
a big name in the art world. She's a corrupt woman.
Oh, interesting. All right. I like how you just throw that down on wax.
Yeah, well, Mary Boone is not one of my favorites.
Yeah, because I don't really know anything about the art
world. Yeah,
that was a difference, right? That
was a thing that we learned about in college.
Yeah.
That was a big topic when I was in school.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, I guess because we were, basically 3 hours away from the city. And
Okay.
New Paltz was known for its metalsmith, especially in the masters.
Yeah.
So, like, really good artists from RISD would go to New Paltz for the metals program.
Oh, wow.
And so the metals program was kind of, this is in the graduate level.
Yeah.
It was pretty special.
Yeah.
And so, as a young artist, we would crash those classes. So we would be getting these really, and the metals department, you think, oh, tinsmiths or, jewelry makers. Yeah, they did that. But for the most part, these people were being trained to become in the art world, go into the art world. So, and we, my pals and me, my friend Tom and Evan and Maddie and Frank, we all were thinking that this is where we were going to head.
Right.
We were going to, take the art world by storm.
Because you remember you were saying you were a big fish, small pond, and you're like, we're going to nail this. What turned you off or turned you on about? What turned you on about and what turned you off about it?
Well, I realized pretty quickly that I didn't have the class to perform in that thing.
What does that mean? Wait, what?
I was way too hecky.
What are you talking about?
I didn't have much class. I'm
You're a very classy guy. In my opinion, what are you talking about?
But I was a young kid then.
Oh, so you're like, fuck you, this and that,
Not so much that. I'm literally saying it's kind of a, like, I don't know, what's the, like a caste system, and
right.
I was not even cool blue collar. I was just hayseed.
So you're saying the art world, much like everything else, they've already got their own
I knew that right away.
Right.
But then, once I started working for an art handling company and, doing things for the art world, especially Mary Boone.
Yeah.
If I throw someone under the bus, I'm going to throw her under the bus.
Fuck it, you're doing it.
But
That's it. Sorry, Mary. I mean, this is what we do.
Yeah. She was a bitch. And I don't know the lack of a better word for it. And I was like, I could never, this is not the world for me.
Especially like when you hit those. I painted galleries. I painted galleries in West Village.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All over there on like 9th Avenue, 10th Avenue.
Sure.
And I used to do the painting there. You know what I mean? And I got a little bit. I kind of feel what you're saying. That's like the closest I've ever.
There's a great scene in the Basquiat movie that.
Basquiat.
Yeah, where William Dafoe is painting the gallery walls, and he's like, I really respect your work. He's like, who are you? And that. But on the same time, I did a lot of art handling. I met a lot of those kind of people in the art world, but I also met Leonardo Drew, and he was really cool.
Yeah, so sometimes people in that world.
And Frank Stella was pretty cool.
Nice.
And I got to touch some really cool pieces of artwork.
Yeah.
And not like too many masterpieces, but a few.
I mean,
we moved the Reader's Digest had all these Monets that we got to
what?
Yeah.
You got to handle Monet?
Yeah, some of the really classical ballerina paintings. Yeah, they were pretty dope.
Jesus.
And then we had this one cool
just even being near it, just be like, whoa, that's the stuff.
We took care of this one thing up in horse country up in upstate New York, Millbrook, New York. A lot of equestrian horses up in that area. Real rich area, I guess. And we took care of this collection up there, and they had like really amazing, like they had John Singer Sargents and Mary Cassatt's, and we would take care of those paintings. Like as a company, we'd go up and inspect them twice a year, and for insurance purposes. And man, it was such a fun part of the job, was to be able to like experience the art.
And that was the art handling was pre-accident.
Yeah, I cut my fingers off building a crate for a Roy Lichtenstein painting.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck you, Roy Lichtenstein.
Fuck you, Roy.
You've ruined Mark Albright's life.
Not really.
Why did you do it?
He didn't ruin my life.
I know, no. I'm just joking. Because I liked it. I was putting that in perspective of just that sort of pre and post that happening to you, because it knocked you out, and so the difference between the art world and the art game is if you just the game is just doing it all the time and having your shit.
Yeah.
But what I see now, I would see you having no problem in the world of art, right?
Well, that's nice.
No, but I don't see that. But I wonder if you would even consider. I mean, obviously for finances that'd be great, but I'm saying, would you still hold that difference between the two, like that?
No, I think there's a difference between. There's a more underground way of doing it.
And you started learning that when?
Well, I actually started learning it at the Right Bank. Actually, I started my first foray in the art world, or at least Brooklyn art world, the local art scene.
Yeah,
was at the Right Bank. My friend Carrie Skozik was running the gallery up there at that point, and we just became pretty fast friends. She's an amazing inspiration in my life. I love her.
Shout out to her. Huh?
Yeah,
hello. Give her some props there.
Yeah, she was running the gallery up there, and she'd have a mermaid show for the Mermaid Parade every year.
Like the Right Bank, where was that located? Where was the actual?
So that was on Broadway and Kent Avenue.
Okay, so that's further down. Now, was East River Bar there?
East River Bar was a biker gang hangout.
Okay, so that whole place was a biker spot. So Right Bank, you were saying like during the day it was like sugar factory cats, right?
Yeah, and bridge guys.
And then what would happen at nighttime there when you were bartending?
Well, when I was bartending, the Right Bank at night was already was infiltrated by a cult of Vic Thrill fanatics for the most part.
What is it? I'm sorry.
So there's this cool cat in the neighborhood named Billy Campion. He was in this pretty big band called the Bogman. And,
Okay, yeah.
And then he kind of took up residency at the Right Bank, and he reinvented himself as the Bogman as this character named Vic Thrill. So it's like a Ziggy Stardust.
Oh.
But he had this like residency at the Right Bank, and then, so that at nighttime there it was. It kind of turned into this kind of cool music venue, and then there was other musicians like, Lex Gray, and Tommy Tucker, and Bum Rush, and they were pretty what I call the early pioneers of Williamsburg.
So they were living in the neighborhood and then performing in the neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got to be there as the bartender.
Well, I first was on the other side of the bar. I was first a customer.
First of all, you were a drinker.
Yeah.
And then you became
after I cut my fingers off, they gratefully
so then
hooked
after
me up with a job.
Post accident, they're like, put this guy back there. He's friendly. Let's get this stuff. And they gave you shows in there. And
I would still put into group shows there. I never had a solo show at the Right Bank, but yeah, it was always group shows. Always group shows.
So that during that time, this is after the accident, you're bartending. And this is the hiatus period, which you would consider your hiatus.
I did that for about 3 years.
Okay.
And then I decided that bartending was really taking a toll on my marriage and my and my
what would you
lifestyle.
Say? Sorry, just as a personal thing. What was the toll on the marriage? You don't have to get
my
crazy.
My wife and I weren't seeing each other at all because I worked nights, she worked days, and I would roll out of the bar and go to an after hours bar. And, extracurriculars and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
no, I understand.
Yeah, it was just not. It was taking a toll on my body, and it was taking a toll on my marriage.
It'll get you there.
I realized that if I kept doing what I was doing, I wouldn't get the opportunity to be that painter that I wanted to be.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Because the only people that bartenders can really date are other bartenders.
Right? Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah,
I was married the whole time.
Right. You can date other bartenders because you get up at the same time. So you're like, let's get a 6-pack at 5 a.m. What other woman in the history of womandom would actually meet you at 5
a.m.?
That
one was holding down a multi-million-dollar market in the garment industry.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, that lady's not going to be doing that. Like, hey, join me for some Coors Light at 5 a.m. That's not going to happen. Strippers, right? There's the other people because they get off at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And maybe waitresses, late night waitresses, maybe, and drug dealers. And those are the only people basically you can date in that. If you're living the bartender lifestyle, that's pretty much just for those who don't know.
Well, I knew all those people when I was a bartender.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
I knew all those people when I was a bartender.
Yeah.
Oh man, I had lots of fun times during those 3 years as a bartender.
That was as long as you ever bartended? 3 years?
Yeah, I did a few other. Here and there. I bartended again. So I bartended at 2 bars during the 3 years.
What was the other one?
It was called Shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
And that's in Kensington, Brooklyn. And that's South Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And that's, South Brooklyn, it's by Prospect Park.
Yeah.
South
Right.
That was a real education.
What was that about? What happened there?
The crazy thing about North Brooklyn is that, for when you went out that time, these are the people you met. Especially on the South Side. Because 1996, I'm a South Side guy.
Okay, so South Side, 96.
I move away from Humboldt Street. I move out of the Italian neighborhood, and I move into the South Side of Williamsburg. And, at that point, cocaine and heroin, central gangs, it was
rough.
Wonderful.
So you've had Hasids, you got the gangs, you have the Hasidim, you've got...
Hasidim are on the other side of the bridge.
Hasidim's
I'm on
over
the other
there.
side, but at the same time, yes, we do have the Hasidim, and that they were definitely part of the bar scene.
Right.
So at night you'd have all these kind of Vic Thrill cult people at the Right Bank, and then you'd have your coke addicts, and you'd have a few Hasidim that were there to watch the game.
Right.
What
a mix. What a mix.
And they would be they would be drinking.
Of course. Yeah. There's bad Hasidim out there.
Oh,
they break the rules.
Lots of rule breakers.
I know about you guys.
I know a lot of rule breakers. And don't tell anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, we get it, dude. They like prostitutes too. They would rent out the music. They would rent out the music rehearsal spaces.
Oh man,
people don't even.
Do you remember Tops? Tops, the grocery store.
Oh, I remember Tops right over here on that. I remember that. It was such a cool place. Yeah, North 6.
Yeah. So I mean, you'd walk to. I would go grocery shopping from South 2nd Street to Tops.
Yeah.
This is the only grocery store in town back then.
Right.
And they, there'd always be hookers, right?
Yeah.
There'd always be hookers.
I heard this neighborhood was that's where all the hookers were hanging out, was this neighborhood.
They were, the Domino Sugar truck drivers. They were hoping, but they would get Hasidim. That was their main clientele. I'm not making that up, and I'm not trying to.
God bless religion. God bless religion.
But these guys, I mean, these prostitutes, they were they were crack whores, right? I guess they called them at that time. And, I remember I actually was driving home from Tops one time in my car, and there was these two smoking hot hookers.
And you're like, wait, what?
And I'm like, cops.
Oh yeah, you're just like, it's like no way, these ladies are.
No, they were way too attractive.
Yeah, you're like, this is not what's going on here.
They had teeth.
Yeah. Oh wow, it was that bad, really? That was like that?
I thought it was that bad.
Jesus.
I thought
some people, I'm like. Yeah, that's all the rumors I heard before I got here was like, oh God, burnout cars on Kent.
Yeah.
There was none of those condos there now that they got going on. It was just fucked up, and you wouldn't even go past Barry.
Well,
I mean, you did.
You would, because you had to, but at the same time, you became street aware. I mean, there was a serial killer in Williamsburg for half a minute there.
Wait, what? Who's a serial killer in the 90s?
Well, yeah.
Oh, Wait, you talking about Machete Man?
No, Williamsburg Strangler.
What? Wait, tell me this. I don't understand. I don't know anything about this.
Well, there's a cool Vic Thrill song called The Williamsburg Strangler.
What?
You should check it out, and it'll tell you the whole story.
That's crazy. Wow.
He killed, I think, like 5 prostitutes. He strangled 5 prostitutes.
They're always killing hookers. I don't know what it is.
He lived under the Williamsburg Bridge. I went by his freaking shanty every night when I went to the right.
He lived in a shanty?
Right under the bridge.
And he was going around, but he was a strangling guy. He was doing that.
He was a strangler.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, and I heard that there was that guy. What about Machete Man? You ever hear about Machete Man?
I don't know about Machete Man.
That came later. That was like when I first moved here. They're like, watch out when you're coming. Apparently, when you were riding your bike down the Williamsburg Bridge, he would just wait there with a machete. He didn't kill anybody. He just maimed somebody and then run away night and just bounce. And so when I first moved here, all we heard about is this Machete Man. And I'm like, well, that's why I don't ride bikes in New York City. Like, that's one reason why I take the subway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't ride bikes in the city either. I'm not because of Machete Man.
No, not because of Machete Man. But that's crazy. So like you must be living the dream at this point. Other than you were sad about like the accident. You're like, fuck, throwing off your game a little bit. But then now you're bartending. You're around these great artists. I mean, that must have felt interesting. I mean,
it was great. I mean, it was, Brooklyn family.
Yeah.
And it was family, and it was misfits, but
right.
It was family.
Right back. 2, 1.
What age were you about during this whole thing?
Well, I cut my fingers off when I was 31.
Okay,
but I started drinking the right bank when I was around 26. So, it was a long, and then they closed at 2003.
Okay, so when they're closed, you were still drinking there, but and working? No.
I was the last bartender. I closed that bar. I shut it down.
Wow, fuck yeah, man! Congratulations.
Yeah,
cheers for that.
Yep, I was the last man behind the bar.
But what kind of lessons do you learn at Shenanigans? Just already the name itself just says it all.
Well, I learned that the difference between my experience in Brooklyn was not real Brooklyn. It was a very isolated patch of Brooklyn.
Right.
And so when I went to work at Shenanigans, Kensington is at that time, I don't know what it is now, but this is 20 years ago.
Sure.
So, it was a small enclave Irish community,
Yeah.
and they were very suspected strangers and everything else.
How the hell did you get a job in there then? You gotta know somebody, right?
Well, I did.
Yeah.
And so my friend's wife's family owned the bar.
Ah, that's
And
cool.
so
Lucky. That's good
when
for
I
you.
cut my fingers off, they came to the right bank one day. And it was so funny because Peter Luger's was closed for some reason. They stopped in the right bank, and I'm like, Mr. and Mrs. I don't want to say her name.
Yeah, no names here. We're good.
But I said, "How you doing?" You know, and I
Yeah.
treated them really good.
Yeah,
I made
yeah.
sure they got a round of drinks. You know,
Sure.
on me. You know, like, and so they're like, you know, you bartend here, and I'm like, yeah, I have a shift here, and they're like, well, you should work at our bar.
Oh my
It's-
god, I love that kind of stuff when that happens. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, and so I went down there, and you know, I kind of got the lesson of you know, this is our rack, and when this guy comes in, you get the Johnny Walker down here,
Right,
because that's the real Johnny Walker.
Oh, okay.
And this is the fake Johnny Walker.
All right.
And you
All
know,
right.
like, and so we were across the street from a precinct, and it was kind of a cop bar, and
Wow.
you know, it wasn't. There was no artists there, and
Yeah,
there
that's
was
not
no.
an arty. That's not an arty bar. There's no.
No. There was
There's no painters.
Lots of gambling.
Okay. All right.
And,
All right.
lots of shenanigans.
A lot of shenanigans.
A
Going
lot
on
of
there.
shenanigans.
Yeah.
I
What a
learned,
great way to learn. What a
learned to-
great way.
learned a thing or two about a thing or two.
Yeah.
There was also a stable right across, you know, within
Stable?
walking. Yeah, a horse stable. So we
Okay.
got a lot of horse people.
Okay. That's a weird mix too.
There was a whole. You remember that show Insomniac? There was,
I think so. Wait,
it was on the-
David Tell?
David
Yeah, of course,
Tell.
the Tell. Yeah, of course.
Shenanigans is on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's one of. It's funny because two of the
So
bars.
check it out, everybody. Check it out.
Two of the bars I was a regular at was on David Tell's.
Well, Dave used to be a huge drink. I mean, he stopped drinking, but like, you know,
Yeah.
he still goes out apparently. Like, I mean, apparently he's still around. But
He just drinks seltzers. And,
I think he drinks,
bitters.
seltzers and smokes a shitload of cigarettes. That's pretty much it. And looks homeless. I know the only comedian I served was in Boston, and it was Dennis Leary.
Imagine that.
And then I know Boston, right? And he was a dick. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
Oh,
he was mean to me. He would put his back to the bartender.
Oh.
And it's like, who does that? I'm really interested in what got you back with that passion, because that's tough to find. If you lose that, and you're saying you had your accident in your early 30s, now you're like in that period where, you know, how do you get that back, or how did you get that back?
Well, I don't know. Luckily, I have space, and so I started designing my studio space. And you know, once I had the time, you know, I've never been someone that rested on his laurels.
Okay,
right? You know,
right.
I got to do something.
So that post depression, or whatever, what do you want to call it? Post abyss period.
So after I think the one major reason why I didn't work for that long is because I was tired.
Right.
When I was bartending, it was because I was up all night and I was
of course.
drinking, and
course.
I was and I was in a pity party.
Yep. That
And-
happens to
Yeah.
the best of us.
So it's fun.
I think, you know,
But-
I had that after the cancer, so it's,
Yeah. See.
you know what I mean? I had my little, like, everything's sad. What am I going to do?
Yeah. You do some knucklehead moves, but at the same time, I went home one day and I said, "Shell, I'm gonna quit bartending, and I'm gonna get a day job." And she's like, "Yeah, you know, September 11th just happened. You know,
Jesus
like,
Christ.
it's like hard to get work, and and you know,
Fucking city's in disarray.
Yeah.
It's just not even...
so I went to my job, Right Bank, and I said, you know, Right Bank's closing at this point. You know, the end date's in, so this is probably, it closed April 1st, so this is probably March sometime.
Right.
And I went to my Monday shift, and this kid Justin walked in, and he was younger than me. He was like 27 years old. He's like, you know, I'm starting up this cabinet company, and you know, you want to, you know, start swinging a hammer again?
You're like...
And I'm like, as long as I don't have to run the table saw.
Right. Yeah, you're like, I'm not going anywhere fucking near a goddamn saw.
I run a table saw now. I'm not scared, but at that point I was still a little hairy.
It's a little scared. I would be not happy about it either. I'd be like, nope.
No. But anyway, and we did one cabinet job, and then we he turned into a general contractor, and that's how
cool.
That's how I got into that business.
And you get home from that, and you're just like,
I would get
I
off
need
of
a
work.
beer, and I need to chill the fuck out.
Oh, man, I would go to the Blue Lounge right up in here.
Yep. I remember the Blues. I remember.
Yeah, they had the best happy hour in Williamsburg when I was at that stage of my life. So the right bank closed. I'm now between the right bank and the Owl House. Wow. And so there was a 2-year stint there where I was at Blue Lounge.
Yeah, because that's right between. That's like right where you're at. Perfect.
And they had the best happy hour. Buy one, get one.
I gotta get you on a side program where we just only talk about Williamsburg old bars. Because I want to remember the ones I remember, and I want to know the ones that you remember. And we'll do a whole piece on.
All
that.
right.
They'll be separate.
All right. I'll stay on topic.
No. I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about. I don't care where you go, man. You can go wherever the hell you want. You're in charge. I mean, but so once this thing, so you got the job, so you're doing some of that stuff. But what was that moment? Was there a pinnacle moment where you're like, okay, I need to either it's age, or you're drinking too much, or you're fucking working too much, and you realize, oh my God, I'm gonna be miserable the rest of my life if I don't. Well, what was that moment?
Well, it's not as exciting as I think you hope it would.
I know, it almost sounds like, it's like your 8 Mile moments, like, you own it. Never let it go. No, I know. Usually never is.
I didn't. It's probably not that exciting. It's just that eventually I would have 30 hours in the week where I could paint and I could draw, and then I did that. And
so time,
just having the time to do it, and like I said, not resting on my laurel of I have to, if I'm given this opportunity where I don't have to hump sheetrock, hump plywood, deal with crazy tile people and designers that don't know what square is, and plumb is, level is.
So it's the annoyance with that, having time.
And also then my house, because we bought a house
in
'93, and my house renovations were coming to fruition around 2008, because that was also a full-time job for a long time, was just working on the house. But then the studio, at first it was pretty shabby, but I was able to do some pretty big paintings in that. So at that show,
size changed. So the size of your work changed.
The size of your studio tells you the size of your work when it comes to painting, because if you don't have the space to do a big painting, you can't do a big painting.
You're not doing one.
How do you get it out? What you get in?
You can build it up inside, but
it's like, I was bringing up Leonardo Drew. He did him in 2 foot, so he could get him out of his building.
I see.
So you have to think of that stuff when you're being an artist. You can't. If you're gonna build something big, you gotta be able to bust it down.
So there was those 3 things then. It was time
and space, and money.
And money.
Yeah. And
so it was time, space, and money. That's it, guys. That's it, folks. That's all you need.
Well, I don't ever have to worry about spending too much on materials. Paint is not that expensive, first of all.
Yeah.
And I'm also pretty creative at finding it.
Yeah, you can find it going back from your dad's garage, right?
Exactly. and
you've got that. You can search that out.
Even in college, though, like when we would paint in school, my friends and I, we would go to the hardware store and get enamel paints, and people would get so pissed off because it stunk.
Yeah.
It was like,
enamel. Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
it's the worst, and we'd like stink up the studios, and they'd be like, you fuckers.
right. That's awesome.
There'd be like these little old ladies who are doing landscape paintings,
and they're like, what are these young punk kids doing in our goddamn... That's hilarious. Bathroom break?
I'm good, but you can go.
No, I'm saying for me.
All right. Little backstory is like when I moved here, we were considered bohemians.
Okay. When you moved here, when you got here in '93.
Correct.
You were bohemian, right?
So they would call hipsters bohemians back then.
Right.
So in 2003, I would say this is the beginning of what very early hipster movement was starting to happen.
Right. The very early.
Well, I liked these people. They were fun. They were like basically weirdos and no vodka.
Yeah.
And they were fun. We had a good time. 2003, it was kicking here. It was so much fun.
Because a lot of people, when they hear the word hipster, they're thinking, okay, these guys are just assholes, scenester.
See, I think,
but you would say different.
See,
you would say different.
Yeah, because, like I said, the beginning of what would be known as hipster. Because everything that, when you hear that word with all that thing, I think scenester.
Scenester.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because so I would say that started happening in, 2006. So
okay, so there was a 3-year grace period, basically.
Well, the first
Bohemian was
the first hipsters were young college kids that were younger than me.
Yeah.
But they were still artists. They were still musicians. They were it was the time of Lux Bar and and yeahs and TV on the radio and so these people were coming because of that, because there was this kind of wonderful peak, and that was around it, and so
around 2003 that was a peak. There was like a lot of things happening. There was an energy in the neighborhood.
There was an energy in the neighborhood that was really peak. And then after that, the scenesters started to come in, but that's what generally people would call hipster.
What they would call hipster now,
right,
is what you would refer to in vocabulary as scenesters.
Correct.
Got it.
Because the first round of them were really cool kids,
right?
And they're just finding their thing.
Artist people.
Yeah. And so, but when I moved here, we were artists too.
Right. But
it was different on the fact that this neighborhood was starting to be gentrified, obviously. I always like to say I'm OG. I'm original gentrifier.
Okay, original.
Yeah, I'm OG, original gentrifier. And I feel really bad about that.
Why? Don't feel guilty. Come on.
I do.
Why?
It sucks. Well, because I love the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Sure. And so and before, like, how did those construction guys and the bridge guys look at the creative weirdos like you guys?
Well, not very good. No, they thought.
So they were like, we're not talking to you.
They eventually talked to us, but at the same time, it was really rough. I mean, there was a whole bunch of racism, homophobia.
From the construction guys.
Oh yeah, all that
still goes on.
Yeah, it was.
No offense, my fellow working brothers.
Yeah, no, but at the same time, some of them were very generous and didn't give a shit.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck. Right?
Yeah, but there was still the one guy at the end of the bar.
Oh, that guy.
That guy.
The drunk uncle.
Yeah, the white hair Santa Claus looking guy.
He doesn't like people of a certain color.
If you're an old rape banker and you hear this, you know exactly who I mean.
Didn't like people of color.
He didn't like anybody.
Everybody was an asshole.
Unless you worked with him or you were in the I forgot, was he a Marine or was he in the Army?
Yeah, if you weren't part of local or
he was military. He was a vet. But he got great stories. But he was a bigot and a racist. Very Archie Bunker bigot stereotype.
That guy.
Yeah.
Right.
He was awful.
He was terrible.
He was a terrible person.
And then you started seeing that change, and that's what I'm trying to notice from or talk to a lot of the people from this neighborhood about. Like, where is that little gap that occurred between when the neighborhood was what people would consider the neighborhood,
right?
Because I've heard from some old school gangsters that they're like, I like these creative types. They're all right. They buy the drugs. They, you know what I mean? Like they're chill. Like they're doing their wacky projects.
My first experience. So when I moved from New Paltz down here, my friend Matt moved here first, and he got this apartment on Roebling Street.
Yeah.
On the south side.
Yeah.
And his upstairs neighbor was this guy, and he was a Latino activist, anti-gentrification guy, and like he stormed in. He's like, "You artists gotta go!"
Wow. Wow.
And we're like, "What?" Matt, I just signed a lease.
Dude, I'm here, dude.
Yeah,
I'm not going anywhere.
And he's like telling us, you are gonna ruin this neighborhood, and he was right. But at the same time, we smoked a joint, and he's like, "You're okay. You're good."
All right, so once you get in there, I have a theory about New York that you could be from Mars with 3 heads, but if you pay your rent on time and you're a chill dude, they're like, "Hey, he's all right. He's got 3 heads. He's from Mars. He's all right.
That's kind of
he's okay."
yeah.
New Yorkers are very accepting.
We would hang out with that cat all the time. And
Yeah.
he was
They're a little rough around the edges at first.
specifically where I knew that a threshold had been crossed.
How did you know?
I was at South 4th Bar.
Oh yeah.
And I was in there, and so it wasn't, probably about 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
And I was in there, and there was these 2 guys sitting at the end of the bar, and they were talking about capital gains taxes. And I'm like, what the fuck did I just walk into? I know what capital gains are.
I still don't know what that means.
But, because I was so used to either you'd be walking in and you'd be talking about a game, or you'd be talking about something very Brooklyn, or you would be talking about art, or you'd be talking about theater, or you'd be talking about film.
And what was that main and the main change was what, around what time? It was like,
I'd say about 8 years ago, where it stopped being even
threshold.
Interesting young kids that may have facial hair or ironic T-shirts,
right?
But it turned into, this is where bankers and lame kind of bankers,
like not the cool bankers that help you save money, but shitty bankers.
Yeah, let's say Wall Street.
And so you're saying Wall Street moved in around 2012.
About that.
And that's funny too. That's when a lot of these condos went up too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So when that happened, did you start feeling that curmudgeon feeling?
That's kind of funny. A little bit, yeah, sure. I was definitely more willing to spend more time in the studio.
Yeah.
That's
and at that time, did your work increase? Because, what you've been doing, since you've been doing these kind of things here, I know the audience can't see what I'm doing, but I'm turning on my phone.
Yeah.
But once you started doing these kind of, because what I would consider, and we'll go back to kind of how we started, street art stuff.
Yeah, I brought some sketchbooks if you want to look through them.
I will take some pictures and I would love to. Go ahead, let's bring some out. Just be careful of the liquids, but. Oh no, it's a long one. So you're good to go.
I'm still cautious.
Yeah, you're a cool guy.
Art handler,
Because you're a cool dude. Oh, I sat here with Monty and his fucking sketchbook. I was stoked.
Well, there's different sizes, and the funny thing,
Okay, we need to talk about this.
Monty Antrim is one of the best sketchbook artists I know, and
No, he's out of control. See, look at your. Okay, I open up to. Hold on, we're gonna. It's William Burroughs right there. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, of course. Shane McGowan.
Dude, you fucking nailing it, dude. Look how fucking beautiful this. See, and you and Monty, man, I think your sketchbooks are crazier than what you post. All this is like that just alone. I know you just be like, I'm looking through this gentleman's sketchbook now, which, and by the way, this is the reason why I bring painters over here, just because I love looking through their shit. I have an addiction to paint. See, look at this stuff. So where do you? All right, when you're doing this, what different kind of is this paint?
Yeah, it's paint. It's all paint.
It's all paint, but that's not paint though.
It's all paint.
No, wait. These blue lines here. Is this paint here?
Yeah, it's paint.
Well, how do you? Okay, so here's what I'm looking at. Let me describe. I'm looking at a gentleman. Who is this person?
That's Vito Genovese.
All right, this is interesting. Throwback to a previous dialogue point. Anyhow, but yeah. So we're dealing with a kind of a violet fuchsia. He's got fuchsia on the gentleman, almost it's a sort of a design of his suit, and it moves up to the skin tone. What color is this? What would be the official?
Pink.
Is this pink or is it?
Maybe it's kind of a pink.
All right, yeah, it's kind of a pink, right? I was thinking mauve.
It's a little red with white in it.
Okay, a little red with white in it. Sorry, this is wonderful. And then what are these stars though? How do you? Because that's what I thought was not. I thought that looks like that's not paint.
Yeah, it's paint. So
it's out of
how I do it is I take a piece of, like, you take a milk crate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has some markings on the bottom, and you do spray paint, and you do many, many layers, and then you start getting these patterns in here.
I see.
And then there's some stars in here too, because I'll put like stars and stuff like that. So then I have it's one of those glow in the dark stars that you put on your ceiling.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, the old school ones. Yeah.
So you put that on it, and then you spray paint around it, and it makes this.
So
texture.
so that's, I guess what I mean is like, what version of paint are you using here? That's the question. It's
I
was like,
use
there's no.
all versions of paint.
So because I'm feeling this, and I'm going, that's oil.
Oh no,
Oh, that's acrylic.
all acrylic.
Okay, so I'm an idiot. All right, so
No
like
problem.
I don't. There's no oil in this painting right now.
Not at all.
Okay, but sometimes you do use oil.
Hardly ever. Never. I stopped using oil paints.
I love. Okay, I'm going through this. I love the set. Okay, this guy's got, and now we're going to get into his style a little bit. You have so much sexual energy and interesting violence, and I love this. By the way, this lady, I want to hang out with her.
Well, that's
Yeah, and then we have this
that's-
lady. We're getting into like,
That's-
hey guys, we were talking about titillating before. Oh, is that Monty?
Yeah, it is.
What? I got to take a picture just for my own. Can I just do that? Is that all right with you?
Of course.
I love this guy so much. Dude.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
No, he's the shit. Yes, please refer back to the Monterey Atrium thing we got there.
Well, Monty is he's one of the best sketchbook artists out there, and he's he's got a great work ethic, and he gets shit done.
Well, that's how you get stuff done. All right, Mr. Albright. So this crazy. So in the sense of like, how would you? I don't want to.
You can just with it.
Yeah, but I don't want to fuck with your shit.
You can't. You have to.
Oh, this is one of the great books. Last Exit to Brooklyn here.
Yeah.
A major work of fiction, Hubert Selby. Now, you were cool enough to do my book cover
Oh, that's
twice.
Right. Yeah, I did.
So, one of the craziest things that you did was, do you remember that story? Do you remember how we did? Oh,
Well, which one? I remember both stories.
So, all right,
I did two book covers.
All right,
for
so
you.
let's talk about one that's for more of a collective idea.
Yeah.
The thing you did with the Hemingway and the Fitzgerald.
Right.
Okay, now this is something that I've just never. I mean, we'll go through this. We'll talk all about this. But
Whatever.
this thing you did. Now, how would you describe what you did? How would you describe it
Well, you asked me to do
for the audience? For the audience,
You said you were doing this thing about
cataloging.
Yep, and you saw the cover being a back, front and back cover. One being Hemingway, one being F. Scott Fitzgerald.
But I didn't know how to approach it because because I would not. You don't want to do something so obvious, right? But like I wanted something different.
Well, and then I came to you and I brought you. I cut 2 stencils because that's one of my major processes, I guess, or one of the things that I do is.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for about 6-7 years now.
Stencils?
Cutting stencils, yeah. And I cut them all by hand. And I was in very early stages of cutting stencils when I did those covers for you.
And could you describe to the audience, like, okay, so I wanted that. That's what I wanted. Okay, I wanted Hemingway on the front, wanted Fitzgerald on the back, what have you. I didn't care how it was done. I was just thinking about in my own mind. And then I reach out because Mark Albright's at your bar, and if Mark Albright's available to work, then you want to take that opportunity to do something with him.
That's kind.
So, and then he comes back, and I'll describe it because I love it. It's dear to my heart. So it was the pictures of the men, but you know what? I have it right over here. Hold on a second. So
This came out really good.
So what he's got is what he did was he did a stencil of Hemingway's face on the front of the piece, and then he did Fitzgerald, and he took very famous pictures. But how did you make those pictures? Did you just cut them out of that stuff and then?
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
I'm gonna close this. I'm closing. Sorry.
So how I make a stencil
James
is
Joyce.
I take a photograph, and then I threshold it. Basically, if you go on Photoshop and you threshold it.
I don't know what that means.
It means you bring the contrast levels way to fuck up.
Okay.
And then you can kind of imagine a stencil, because when you cut a stencil, you can't, you have to have bridges.
Okay.
I call them buttresses, but they're bridges. If you cut things out and they'll fall out if you cut them too far.
Right.
So you got to plan out a stencil. So once you get the photograph all completely threshold, as I will call it, absolutely the brightest contrast there is.
Yeah.
Then you have to go in and kind of figure out where you're going to put your structural units so that the stencil doesn't fall apart. And so that's how you make a stencil. And then I take the photograph after I figured out all the structural needs, and I glue it onto a piece of acetate, and then I get my handy surgical razor out.
And then you carve out this image that we see, and then you spray paint that spray paint.
Yep.
So I'm just looking at the cover of the first catalog.
Yeah.
And they did come out fantastic. I was so honored.
Yeah, they look good.
I would like to reuse the image, but
Sure.
And then behind it though, this is where this guy's genius comes. He cuts out pieces of each author's work and puts it together. The way he puts it together is just so gorgeous. And then on the back, he's got, of course, Mr. Fitzgerald chilling, and then his own work. And so what you did was basically cut out from an old pagey book.
Well, I have a lot of books,
Yeah.
and so I found some nice. They were beautifully aged.
Yeah, right. They have that because doesn't the text have that, especially like in a lot of the old like paperbacks. That's my paperback world.
Well, I remember the funny thing is that when you do covers for Matt, I probably have 70 different paintings of this, right? And then and also the other book that we did together.
We're about to get to that.
We're about to get into that. I did that. I had hundreds of drawings for that I did, and you were very meticulous about picking them out.
And so let me tell. Did we do this first? I can't remember if we did this first. This is second. This is second. Okay,
yeah.
So then after Mr. Albright was sitting at the bar, and I needed a poetry book designer, and I said I want wine bottle in the front. I guess I'm dualistic. Rose on the back or whatever, but I wanted a wine bottle to not be a normal wine bottle. And you did this one. Well, you kept bringing it in. Mr. Albright would walk into the bar, and he brought, how many pieces do you think you did?
At least 60.
Like this guy.
I brought like at least like 10 drawings a week to you.
And it was unbelievable because you did it on what kind of paper? It was like what is it?
I was doing it on watercolor paper.
It looked like rice paper. Okay, that's how crazy it looked. And finally, and they were all gorgeous. Okay, I'm not denying this, but I always say, we always try to talk like it's a million people out there. You know what I mean? No, that's good, right? Then you'll get it.
I always paint like there's a million people going to see it.
Good. Well, guess what? Let me tell you something. A million people will. But so the gentleman walks in multiple times, and I felt people were like, "You're being kind of a dick to Mark. You're not being a nice guy." And I'm like, "No. Like he understands me. We've got a system. We're gonna work on this." And he brings in the cover of Rivals in the Morning, which probably is the reason why it's my most popular book that I have. It's because you do judge a book by its cover, and Mr. Albright here, Mark, did a fantastic job. And how did you make it? Did you like feel like there was a bullet going through the bottle? Like, what was it? If you look at the cover, it looks like a bullet's going through the wine
Remind
bottle.
Me of that cover.
Yeah,
I do a lot of.
I gave them all away.
Oh, okay, good.
I don't even have a copy of it. So.
I have one at home, but I haven't looked at it in a long time.
Yeah. You can imagine it, right? Like
I can imagine it.
Yeah.
Well, I remember specifically another thing that we were talking about as we were collaborating. You were. I was like, I wanted to have this kind of like almost Japanese Zen to
amazing.
It.
Unbelievable.
And so, which is something that I've always been inspired by, and and I'm absolutely so Western that I'm horrible at it. But
I wouldn't go that far, friend. I wouldn't go that far. I've got a lot of compliments on that. That cover has got the most compliments.
So that all those drawings I did for Rivals in the Morning was they were all ink drawings. So like India ink or Sumo ink or whatever it's called.
How cool is that? And I got that, guys. I got that.
And so I also was like, Ralph Steadman
Yeah, Stedman's in there, right?
Well, no. Well, the thing he did was he was always good with that blow pen or that blow.
Oh, you just.
He would do that. You know?
Yeah, is that how he does it with the black ink? He just.
Yeah, and so I was like,
that's cool.
I wanted to take that to the next level, and I'm sure I'm not the first person that did this, but I was taking I was taking those aerosol cans that you clean your computers with.
Yeah.
And I was, instead of going,
smart. So it's like spray paint, but how are you pouring out the paint when you do that though? That's my question.
I would just drip it on. I was trying to do very.
You drip it on and then pow, and then hit it with that.
Hit it with the.
Oh wow.
With the aerosol air.
Wow, that's
awful
fantastic.
for the environment. So I stopped.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
So is humanity.
But it was good for my head. It was good. It was fun because I did, like I said, I think I did like 60 of them.
Oh no, you went. I've never met an artist who did more. Like I've never seen anybody with such a work ethic. You say Monty's got a work ethic. What about that? What about someone telling you, "Hey, let's do this"?
I only hang out with artists that have good work ethics.
There you go. Hey man, I mean, I'm like trying to relearn mine back. It's been a rough year.
Yeah, well, that happens, and we can accept that. But
yeah, of course,
you gotta get back on the horse.
Yeah, you can get back on the horse. That's the beauty of it. And
I work at table saw again.
Well, right. You've learned how to be not afraid of that stuff, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
You gotta get back on the horse.
That's what I like to hear. Good stuff. KTCR. Kill the Cat Radio. Never giving up. Back on the horse. So remember, always stay curious. And we'll see you next time. This is Matthew Diabate, signing off.